Imagine you're walking into this massive, sprawling record store. But instead of the aisles being clearly labeled, like rock or pop or jazz, the signs above the bins are just constantly shifting based on your mood.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Right. And the instruments in the back room are like seemingly playing themselves, and the artists aren't even trying to get you to buy a CD at the front register. They're actually trying to sell you tickets to this secret intimate show out the back door.
I mean, it sounds incredibly chaotic. Like from the outside, the music industry of 2026 looks like an absolute free-for-all.
Total chaos.
Yeah. But underneath that chaos, it's actually a highly sophisticated, deeply data-driven ecosystem. The old familiar layout of the record store is just gone, and the architecture that replaced it is entirely invisible.
And decoding that invisible architecture is exactly what we're exploring today. So, welcome to the Deep Dive. Our mission today is to really dissect this rapidly evolving music landscape of 2026.
Yeah, it's a lot to cover.
There really is. Because whether you are, an independent artist trying to break through the algorithmic noise, or an industry pro trying to figure out where the money actually is,
Right.
or just an intensely curious fan who wants to know why your phone keeps feeding you these weirdly accurate, hyper-specific sounds, we're going to extract the signal from the noise.
And we are pulling from a massive stack of intel to do this today. We're looking at proprietary campaign retention data from Chartlex, extensive investment briefs from Houlihan Lokey detailing the new AI licensing landscape, deep analyses of short-form video strategies, current streaming payout structures, and some really broad 2026 industry forecasts.
Okay, let's unpack this, because looking at all this data, the music industry feels fundamentally unrecognizable compared to just a few years ago. We're looking at a total structural shift in how art is consumed and monetized.
Absolutely. We have officially transitioned from a gatekeeper model to an ecosystem model.
Right.
For decades, the whole industry was built around choke points, right? Getting past the A&R reps, the radio programmers, the editorial playlist curators.
Right, the people who literally decided if you got hurt or not.
Exactly. But now in 2026, relying on a single viral moment is basically a novelty. The artists who are actually surviving are building sustainable microeconomies. They're taking ownership of their data, their audience funnels, and, well, their creative tools.
But, before we can even talk about the economy of music, we have to look at what people are actually listening to. Because the platforms have completely changed how they categorize sound. It's like the entire concept of a genre has just been shattered.
Oh, yeah. The broad genres that really define the 20th century, they are effectively dead when it comes to algorithmic discovery.
Wait, how can they be dead, though? Because looking at the data, it says hip-hop and funk made up roughly 30% of all global Spotify streams in 2025. That sounds like a pretty dominant genre to me.
Well, it is dominant in terms of volume, sure, but not in terms of how the platform actually routes the audio. Like Spotify doesn't just route music based on broad tag like hip-hop anymore.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Instead, the platform operates on what's called a genre graph. And this graph utilizes over 6,000 microgenres.
6,000. That's insane.
We're talking hyper-specific microscopic labels. Things like stomp and holler, or permanent wave, or bedroom pop. And Spotify assigns these labels at the artist level, so it clusters creators into incredibly narrow pools to figure out exactly who gets recommended to whom.
I kind of think of it like using a GPS. Like if you're trying to get to a specific apartment in Manhattan and you just type New York into your GPS, you're going to end up completely gridlocked in traffic.
That's a perfect analogy, yeah.
Right. If you just label your new track as pop, you just get lost in the traffic. You need the exact microgenre zip code for the algorithm to actually route you to the listeners who want your specific flavor of pop.
Because the algorithm demands precision now. If you position your music too broadly, you are competing in this overcrowded ocean. And there is a really harsh penalty for that.
What kind of penalty?
Well, if Spotify tests your music on a broad audience and they skip it within the first 10 seconds, that weak retention signal tells the algorithm that your song is poor quality. It'll just immediately stop promoting your track entirely.
Wow. So what are the actual sounds dominating these microgenre zip codes right now? Because the combinations in the sources we looked at are just wild. Like one of the biggest ones is Plug B.
Oh, yeah. Plug and B is just a massive cultural collision right now.
It really is. It takes these gorgeous, dusty Rhodes piano chords you'd hear in like classic 90s R&B and layers them directly over aggressive, stuttering trap 808s. Those deep chest-rattling sub-bass kicks that literally shake your car.
Yeah, it creates this really fascinating juxtaposition.
Exactly. It's smooth enough for a late-night drive, but the rhythm section hits hard enough for a club environment.
And alongside that, the data shows a huge surge in Afrofuturism.
Oh, all right.
We're seeing traditional African instrumentation, talking drums, choras, blended with incredibly slick, futuristic electronic production. It's becoming this huge global transmedia movement.
And then there's this profound return to maximalism, or hyperfusion.
Right, which is so interesting after years of minimalist pop.
Yeah, for a long time the trend was minimal, clean, pristine production. But now, producers are intentionally leaning into chaos. The Houlihan Lokey briefs note a trend of songs starting as like a quiet, minimal acoustic folk track and then literally exploding into distorted hyperpop.
It's so jarring, but people love it.
They do. Producers are using bad audio artifacts like bit crushing, which is intentionally destroying the audio quality to make it sound pixelated and harsh.
Yeah.
They're using that as an emotional texture.
We also definitely have to mention the new metal and rock revival. Bands like Deftones and Limp Bizkit just found an entirely new, massive audience on TikTok over the last couple of years.
Which is wild to think about.
Totally. And that drove an immense thirst among Gen Z for heavy, live wire guitars and unpolished, really rough vocals.
But what really stands out to me is how these aren't isolated buckets anymore. Like, a listener isn't just a metalhead or an R&B fan now. The aesthetics are all bleeding together.
What's fascinating here is that listeners are increasingly categorizing music by emotion and utility rather than by sonic components. We are fully entrenched in the post-genre era.
This is all about the vibe.
Exactly. Playlists are being built around moods, states of mind, and specific use cases. You don't put on a rock playlist anymore. You put on a late-night focuses playlist.
Right.
And that playlist might seamlessly transition from a lo-fi acoustic guitar to an ambient electronic drone right into an R&B track. The emotional resonance is basically the only unifying factor.
Which means, to create those incredibly specific, emotionally resonant microgenres, a producer's toolkit has had to radically evolve. And looking at the studio landscape of 2026, there's this intense, almost violent tug of war happening between cutting-edge AI generation and raw, organic imperfection.
Yeah, the venture capital money flowing into AI music generation over the last 24 months has completely reshaped the baseline of what's possible in a recording studio.
So let's break down these AI giants, because the technology isn't just a toy anymore. It is industrial grade. First, you have Suno. They are the undeniable category leader here.
Without a doubt.
As of early 2026, they reached a $2.45 billion valuation, $300 million in annual recurring revenue, and they secured a massive licensing deal with Warner Music Group to train models on their catalog.
And to understand how Suno actually works, think about how text generators predict the next word in a sentence based on massive amounts of reading.
Okay.
Suno does that with sound waves. You just type a prompt, and it predicts the next microsecond of audio, sketching out a full pop or hip-hop song with incredibly realistic human vocals.
Then there's Udio, which took a slightly different path. They actually settled a major copyright dispute with Universal Music Group, which brought a lot of legal clarity to their platform.
Right, which made them a safe bet.
Yeah. And Udio has become the absolute favorite for electronic producers because of the way it outputs audio. It provides incredibly clean stems, and if you aren't an audio engineer, a stem is just an isolated layer of a song.
Right, like just the drums.
Exactly. So you can ask the AI to generate a funk track, but only download the isolated bass line, drag that single element into your recording software, and then manipulate it yourself.
And the ecosystem extends way beyond just those two. Stable Audio is dominating the instrumental sound design space, which is heavily used for podcasts and ad beds.
Super useful for creators.
Definitely. Then 11 Labs, the voiceover giant, launched 11 Labs Music with backing from Merlin and Cobalt. And AIVA remains the go-to for complex cinematic game scoring. And, all of these tools are producing 44.1 kilohertz stereo audio.
Which basically means fully mastered CD quality radio-ready sound.
Precisely. The baseline cost of generating professional-sounding music has just plummeted to essentially zero.
I have to stop and challenge this, though, because Apple Music reported in May 2026 that over a third of new uploads to their entire platform are now fully AI-generated. A third.
It's a staggering number.
It is. If a machine can spit out a flawless, radio-ready plug-in B track in 10 seconds for pennies, human musicians have to be facing like an extinction-level event. Why would anyone ever pay a human producer or singer again?
It is a completely logical fear, I mean, of course, but the listener data tells a profoundly different story.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yes, a massive volume of pure AI tracks are flooding the servers. But here is the crucial context from Shortlex. Those fully AI tracks account for less than 0.5% of total listening time on Apple Music.
Wait, seriously. So people are uploading millions of AI songs, but nobody's actually sticking around to listen to them.
Not more than once, no. Chartlex analyzed over 2,400 artist promotion campaigns, and their data proves that fully AI-generated tracks have a 25 to 40% lower save rate and a 15 to 25% higher skip rate than human-recorded tracks.
That's a huge difference.
It is. The machine can perfectly mimic the structure of a pop song, sure, but it lacks the subtle, unpredictable emotional friction that makes a human actually want to put a song on repeat. Listeners might try an AI track out of curiosity, but the repeat listener rate just absolutely flatlines. And remember what we said about Spotify's algorithm?
Right. It sees that high skip rate, reads it as a weak retention signal, and just buries the song.
Right into algorithmic oblivion. However, the data also shows what does work. The AI-assisted hybrid release is really winning the game right now.
What does that look like in practice?
This is where a human artist uses AI to quickly brainstorm chord progressions, maybe generate an isolated stem for inspiration, or just break through writer's block. But then they step into a physical studio.
Oh,
They replace the AI vocals with their own flawed voice. They add real, tangible instruments. That hybrid approach actually beats pure manual production by 10 to 20% on algorithmic save rates. AI is functioning as an administrative and creative sidekick, not the lead singer.
That makes so much sense. And because AI can now generate mathematically flawless music with basically zero effort, there is this massive counter-trend happening in response. Listeners are actively craving the physical and the imperfect.
Absolutely.
Producers are abandoning those pristine, perfectly timed stock drum loops. Instead, they're utilizing found sounds. They're literally taking out their phones, recording the ambient hum of their refrigerator or like the crunch of footsteps on gravel, and layering that raw audio into their beats.
Yeah, people want to hear the analog hiss. They want to hear the singer take a breath before the chorus.
Exactly. And that intense craving for the tangible is also the exact mechanism driving the massive 2026 comeback of physical media. Cassettes, CDs, and vinyl are booming across all demographics right now.
Yeah,
It functions as this much-needed antidote to streaming fatigue.
it really does.
I mean, think about it from a psychological perspective. When an algorithm is endlessly feeding you invisible digital files and you skip 20 songs in 3 minutes, music just feels disposable. But holding a heavy vinyl record, studying the artwork, and the physical commitment of dropping a needle onto the groove, it transforms listening back into a grounding, intentional act. It has permanence.
Yeah, but if we connect this to the bigger picture, you can have the most emotionally resonant, hybrid-produced, analog-warmed masterpiece in the world, but if nobody knows it exists, it just doesn't matter. The megaphone that artists use to reach the masses has entirely mutated.
Which brings us to the absolute battlefield of short-form video. It is the primary discovery channel, full stop. But the rules of the game changed completely with the massive TikTok update in January 2026.
They really did.
If you are still trying to make a cute 15-second video hoping to hit the viral lottery, you are totally wasting your time.
Yeah, TikTok is aggressively pushing much longer videos now, anywhere from 60 to 180 seconds. They are in a direct existential battle with YouTube for long-form ad inventory. And because of that shift, the algorithmic thresholds required to actually trigger virality have become just punishing.
To get pushed to the wider For You page now, a video needs a brutal 70% completion rate.
Which is wild.
It is. Think about how fast you swipe on your phone. Keeping someone's attention for 70% of a 3-minute video is incredibly difficult. That threshold used to be 50% just a few years ago. Watch time is the absolute god metric now.
Furthermore, rewatch rate is critical. If 15 to 20% of the audience reaches the end of the video and immediately loops it to watch again, the algorithm multiplies the reach exponentially. You have to pack density and value into every single frame.
But it goes way beyond just the visuals. TikTok has evolved into a search engine. The sources indicate that 64% of Gen Z users treat TikTok exactly like Google.
I mean, I do it too.
Right. Think about your own habits. You probably open TikTok and search for, like, how to mix acoustic guitar or new indie rock bands 2026.
No.
And because of that behavior, search engine optimization, SEO, is vital. Your captions cannot just be a string of emojis anymore.
No, definitely not.
They must be keyword-rich. The text you overlay on the screen needs to directly answer a specific question people are actively searching for.
And navigating all of this requires a really rigorous workflow. An artist has to manage TikTok, Instagram Reels, and YouTube Shorts. If you try to film unique, native content for all three platforms every single day, you will burn out in a week. So the industry standard has become the shoot once in 9.16 workflow.
Meaning you shoot one piece of high-quality vertical video, but you strategically adapt it based on the distinct psychology of each platform.
Exactly.
Like for TikTok, you need original audio because the platform boosts original sounds. And you absolutely must have a visual pattern interrupt something surprising within the first 3 seconds to stop the scroll.
But then for Instagram Reels, the algorithm heavily favors engagement signals, specifically saves and shares to direct messages. So carousel-style reveals or highly relatable moments work best there.
What about YouTube Shorts?
For Shorts, the architecture is totally different. It relies heavily on thumbnail click-through rates, and you have to ensure your initial hook works entirely on mute, because a massive percentage of the YouTube Shorts audience watches silently on their phones in public.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. If you finally nail the SEO and the completion rate, and you post a highly polished video of your new album cover with text that just says, new song out now, link in bio, the data shows it will absolutely bomb. No one cares about announcements.
Audiences care about authenticity and narrative. The video formats actually converting casual viewers into dedicated Spotify listeners are storytime clips.
Right, the super personal stuff.
Yeah, this is where an artist sits in their bedroom and explains the raw, uncomfortable, real-life event that inspired the lyrics. Or it's a day-in-the-life vlog that completely strips away the glamour and shows the exhausting, messy reality of sleeping in a van on tour. It is about documenting the process, not advertising the final product.
You are basically trying to build a parasocial relationship. You want the viewer to feel deeply invested in your journey as a human being before you ever ask them to do the labor of clicking a link and streaming your track. Which pulls us right into the final reality check. The business of being an artist in 2026. Because surviving the content algorithm is one thing, but views don't pay the rent.
Relying on a short-form algorithm to go viral is a lottery ticket. Building a sustainable microeconomy is the survival tactic, and that requires a deep understanding of streaming economics and, increasingly, platform ethics.
Let's talk about the money, because the payout gap between platforms is massive right now. Spotify operates on a pro-rata payout model, which currently pays independent artists roughly $0.003 to $0.005 per stream.
To put that in perspective, think of the pro rata model like a giant tip jar at a massive restaurant.
Okay.
Even if you walk in, sit in the corner, and only order coffee from one specific independent barista, your tip goes into a massive communal pool. And at the end of the night, the celebrity chef in the back kitchen takes 90% of that entire pool. Your subscription money is partially paying the biggest global pop stars on the planet, regardless of whether you actually listen to them or not.
Wow. That model just inherently favors massive volume and global superstars. But alternative platforms are gaining serious ground. Tidal, for instance, pays roughly $0.013 per stream, which is nearly 4 times what Spotify pays. And they do that by using a user-centric payment system.
Yeah, and the user-centric model is like handing your tip directly to the barista who actually made your drink.
That makes way more sense.
Yeah. Right. If you pay your monthly subscription and you only listen to 5 independent bedroom pop artists that month, your money goes exclusively to those 5 artists. It structurally rewards musicians who have cultivated deeply loyal, dedicated fan bases, rather than artists who just casually land on massive background music playlists.
And this economic reality is colliding with a huge shift in consumer behavior. The reports we read detail growing boycotts against Spotify in 2026. Independent communities, both artists and listeners, are citing ethical concerns.
Yeah, there's been a lot of pushback.
They're pointing to reports of the platform's leadership investing in AI military defense companies, the allowance of, controversial recruitment ads, and the unchecked flooding of AI-generated spam tracks on editorial playlists. Now, we aren't endorsing any specific viewpoint here. We're just looking at the data. And the data objectively shows these concerns are driving a massive wedge between major platforms and independent creators.
And it is rapidly accelerating a movement toward digital sovereignty. Independent artists are waking up to the fact that having 1 million followers on a social platform they do not control is just an unacceptable business risk.
Too risky.
Way too risky. If TikTok changes its algorithm tomorrow, your reach can drop to 0 overnight. So artists are aggressively pivoting to capture email addresses and SMS numbers. Those are assets you actually own.
They're heavily utilizing direct-to-consumer or DTC channels.
Yeah.
Platforms like Bandcamp are just thriving because an artist can sell digital tracks, exclusive vinyl variants, and merchandise directly to their core fans, keeping 82 to 90% of the revenue. They are capturing the actual financial value of their art without corporate intermediaries just siphoning off the profits.
We're even seeing this surgical, data-driven approach applied to live touring now.
Really? How so?
Well, historically, it was kind of a badge of honor for an indie band to pile into a van and endure a grueling, completely unprofitable 30-city tour, often playing to mostly empty rooms.
Right, paying their dues.
Exactly. But that era is over. Now, data-savvy artists analyze their streaming heat maps. If their dashboard shows a high density of listeners in, say, London, Mexico City, and Los Angeles, they just ignore the rest of the map. They book 3 or 4 city micro-residencies in those specific hubs. They stay in one city for multiple nights, build a whole local cultural event around it, and significantly slash their travel overhead.
That is so smart. And you're seeing it in how they handle record labels too, right?
Absolutely. The days of signing a massive, all-encompassing 360 label deal are fading for anyone outside the superstar tier. Artists are now demanding modular deals.
That's a modular deal.
These are highly specific, short-term agreements, maybe 12 to 24 months. An artist might partner with a label strictly for marketing capital in Europe or purely for distribution logistics while fiercely retaining the rights to their master recordings and their future AI licensing rights. They are keeping their leverage.
So what does this all mean? When you synthesize the 6,000 microgenres, the AI production tools, the brutal TikTok completion rates, and the user-centric streaming payouts, the modern independent artist in 2026 is no longer just a musician. They are effectively operating as a tech startup, a short-form video director, a data analyst, and a community leader all at once.
It is a staggering amount of responsibility to place on a creator, but it also represents an unprecedented level of control. If you understand the mechanics of this ecosystem, you no longer need permission from a corporate gatekeeper to build a lucrative, sustainable career.
It really highlights how deeply interconnected everything is. We started with the genre graph, showing how platforms route music based on emotional resonance rather than broad labels.
Right.
And to compete in those microscopic niches, producers are leveraging tools like Suno and Udio to sketch ideas, but ultimately relying on raw, analog imperfection, the found sounds, the vinyl hum, to forge a genuine connection with a listener.
And then, to amplify that music, they are navigating the harsh realities of short-form video, using SEO and really vulnerable, authentic storytelling to capture attention in the first 3 seconds.
Before ultimately capturing that audience and pulling them into an owned microeconomy, leveraging user-centric platforms, prioritizing direct email lists, selling physical media, and executing those highly targeted micro-tours. And whether you are the artist navigating this incredibly complex terrain, or you're the listener whose everyday search habits and swiping patterns are literally training the algorithm, you are an active participant in this structural shift.
And this raises an important question, something we really have to think about moving forward. Well, as generative AI inevitably continues to improve and effectively drives the baseline cost of creating flawless, radio-ready recorded music down to absolute zero, what happens to value? If anyone on Earth can generate a perfect pop song with a quick text prompt, will the only true monetizable value left for a musician in the future be their flawed, physical, real-time human presence? Will the live, unedited, in-person performance become the only premium product left in the entire music industry?
Wow, that makes you think differently about that massive shifting record store we talked about at the beginning. The aisles are going to keep rearranging themselves. The algorithms are going to keep sorting the inventory into smaller and smaller microgenres, and the instruments might literally be playing themselves. But at the end of the day, the only reason you walk into the store in the first place is to find another human being on the other side of the music. Thanks for diving deep with us. Keep listening, and we'll catch you next time.